Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UFC 247 media conference call. UFC 247 takes place this Saturday, February 8th, from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. The event airs live on pay-per-view at 10 p.m. in the East and 7 p.m. in the West. The prelims will air on ESPN with the early prelims on UFC Fight Pass. Today's call will be in two parts featuring the athletes participating in the championship bouts. The co-main event will be up first, followed by the main event. With that, please welcome UFC Women's Flyweight Champion Valentina Shevchenko and number one ranked contender Katlyn Chookagian. We can now open it up to questions.
And again, at this time, if you do have a question, that will be star one. We'll hear first from Dylan Bowker with My MMA News.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time to answer my call, guys. My first question was for Valentina. I'm kind of curious because it seems like a lot of the questions you've been getting as of late seem to relate to Weili Zhang and Amanda Nunes. Do you feel like the general public is somewhat overlooking what you're doing at flyweight?
Can you repeat, please, the last part? I didn't hear you well.
Oh, it's okay. I'm just wondering if you think the general public is maybe overlooking what you're doing at flyweight and is thinking of super fights outside of that.
Oh, no. I think that they're just curious to and want to know about everything what's going on. Of course, I think they understand that flyweight is a very hard, competitive division, and of course they understand it. But of course, everyone wants to see a little bit more over it, and I think it's normal that people have interest in all of the things in one time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of wondering, in terms of the styles Katlyn brings to the table, what does she bring to the table that's different from previous opponents?
What she will bring different from previous opponents, I think being Katlyn, she's already different than other one, because I don't believe that any fighter can be the similar that you fought already. Even same fighter, when you fight them twice, it's totally can be two different fights. And of course, it's she has her style, and be prepared for her style. And that's it. I think I hope it's gonna be a good fight. He will put everything on the ground inside the octagon, and of course I'm ready for her, and I don't believe in easy fights. I believe in train hard to make the fight easy.
Awesome. I appreciate you answering that. My next question is for Katlyn. I'm kind of wondering, because I've seen in past interviews you've indicated you won't necessarily deviate from your style just to, please fans and possibly get caught. But in the last, title fight at flyweight, we saw Liz Carmouche fight in a certain style that maybe the UFC didn't think was as aesthetically pleasing and was sort of, promptly cut for that whole thing. Does that put any outside pressure on your fight style or how you approach anything at all?
No, I mean, my style is my style, and I've trained martial arts my whole life, and, the way you adapt and how you become a fighter, sometimes you can help some of those things and try to grow and do better. But, this is my style. And if, I'm going to fight, it's me in there fighting, not anyone else. So it's easy for people on the outside to say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. But, they're not in there doing it and facing the opponents that you're facing. That's just my style. And I'm confident in myself as a fighter and a martial artist, and I'm happy with how I perform. And, if that were to ever be an issue, then that's just the fate and how things are supposed to be.
No, I mean, you certainly have an enjoyable style, so glad that, pressure isn't coming to the forefront at all. But also to that point, I'm curious on a skill set level, what you bring to the table that's maybe different from prior opponents Valentina has had.
I mean, just the same as Valentina explained, every fighter is completely different. I don't think I faced two fighters that were, super similar. I'm just a high volume strike. I think especially at flyweight, I'm probably one of the higher volume strikers. I move, I can do everything. I'm not just one-sided. I've been training martial arts for my whole life. So, a lot of times I think that I have that advantage over some girls. Some girls have only been training for a few years, and I've been doing it my whole life. So I've seen kind of everything. I've trained with so many people and seen, I like when I get to train and not know what the person I'm sparring or what to expect. And it's the same thing in the fight. You don't ever really know what to expect to there. So you just try to be prepared for everything.
Awesome. Thanks for taking my questions, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We'll hear next from Nolan King with MMA Junkie.
Hey, I'd like to thank both fighters for joining us today. Really appreciate the time. My first question is for the champion, Valentina. You just had a question about the super fights. I know it's something you've talked about quite a bit. If you go out there, you do get the win on Saturday. Do you feel like there are still challenges that you could face at this weight class? I know everybody's talking about those super fights, but beyond that, do you feel like that 125 still has its fair share of challenges for you?
First of all, I'm focused on my fight this Saturday, and I'm not thinking about any further fight because I put everything what I have inside me for this Saturday for this fight. Second, it's super fight against who? Like I don't know, Amanda Nunes, Reyes, Henry Cejudo, against who? So I don't think that this is the right moment to think about it right now.
Sure thing. In your last fight, it went the distance. It was kind of a grindy, grueling 5-round fight. The one before it was a head kick knockout in the second round. What kind of fight do you think you'll expect out of Katlyn? What kind of performance should we expect out of you for this fight?
I think it's going to be a good fight, and I think both Katlyn will put everything inside inside the octagon in the fight, and of course I'm ready for anything. How I said, you have to train harder than anyone. And being in the position what I am right now, it's make me feel, it's make me think, not that, okay, you are here, you can now enjoy a little bit, you can rest a little bit. No, it's pushing me every time to train harder than anyone. And having coach as I have, Pavel, it's like every single training, it's like a mini competition because he's pushing me to the limit every time. So I'm ready for anything, for any style. Doesn't matter what plans my opponent gonna have. It doesn't matter for me. I have a response for anything.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. And for Katlyn, I'm sure this is in some senses just another fight for you, but a lot of people are, and maybe you agree, see this as the biggest fight of your career. In preparation, has there been anything different in your mindset, or is this just another fight against a tough opponent?
Yeah, I think it's just another fight. I try not to, yes, of course, it's the title, and that's what we're all here for, and everyone wants that, and that's what you dream about. But it's just another fight. You can't put these big fights on a bigger pedestal. For me, I think your next fight is always a bigger fight. So I'm used to this. Every fight seems like the biggest fight. People ask all the time, what have you done differently to fight for the title? I was like, well, I didn't really do anything different. I prepare obviously specifically for Valentina as if I would for any other fighter, but I'm confident in the way that I've trained for the past years and the professionalism that I've learned, and my coaches. We kind of, of course, each time you make a little adjustments to just try to get better and improve. But for the most part, whether I was fighting Valentina or someone for their first fight, I'm preparing the same way. I prepare as hard as I can. I train as hard as I can, and I take every fight seriously. And yes, this is for the title fight, but my mentality is the same for every fight. Train as hard as you can so you can be as prepared as you can for the day of the fight.
Appreciate the time. Thank you, guys.
Again, for questions, that is star one at this time. We'll hear next from Jeffrey Harris with 411 Mania MMA.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the fighters for joining us. I really appreciate it, and thanks for bringing this fight to my hometown of Houston, Texas. First question for Katlyn. Do you think much at all about what this means to you on a personal level to be able to fight a fighter like Valentina Shevchenko for the UFC title?
Yeah, I mean, when I started MMA, even when I was a kid and I did karate, I wanted to be the best person in the class. And then I went to my first tournament. I wanted to be the best person at the tournament. Then I did Golden Glove. So it's like whatever level that I was training at or the highest level I could see, I always wanted to be the best. And when I started MMA, I didn't even know there was going to be women's in UFC, but I just knew I wanted to be the best. Then I saw UFC starting adding women's division. I'm like, I want to do that. That's the best. So, yes, I think that everyone puts Valentina on a very high pedestal and think that she's an amazing fighter. And, you hear a lot of people even talk about her being not just great for a female fighter, but great for a male and female fighter. And to be able to have her as the champion so I could win that is even more amazing. You don't want the easy fights. You want the hard fights to prove what you can do. So, I'm excited about this fight. I'm excited, that Valentina's the champ and that the challenge is there. And, the harder the challenge, the more motivation it is during training and the more exciting it is.
And Katlyn, have you thought about what it means to you personally if you win the UFC title at UFC 247?
I mean, personally, it's just, this has been a lifelong goal of mine to be the best in the world. So, I'm about 5 days away from being able to reach that goal. And, it's not just the hard training that I put in for this specific fight camp. This is the hard training that I put in my whole life, training martial arts. And, when I was a kid going to karate class and kids didn't think karate was cool, but I thought it was, and I liked it. And now I'm like, okay, all that hard work and not listening to other people, it's paying off because, I'm reaching my goals. So, yeah, to win on Saturday would mean a lot to me.
For Valentina, I'm curious, do you ever think of preparing for fights? Are they ever like a puzzle, like a specific, unique challenge for you to solve?
It's hard to say, because I started training martial arts when I was 5 years old. And actually, I don't have, for a long time that I'm not training. Every time in a shape, every time training. Doesn't matter where I am, travel, do anything, every time I'm in training. And be able, I would say that in my life, be able to travel, to train with different, in different gyms, with different opponents, with different sparring partners. It's like bringing me every time something new, something unexpected, something interesting to learn. And I would say I never stop to learn. And of course, if we are preparing for specific opponent, specific person, it's you have to adjust to see the all dangerous situations that you can have during the fight, but also to make to sharpen your your biggest advantage in front of your opponent. So it's definitely, but it all depends of each single situation.
And last question for both women, since the fight is in Texas, provided you're not vegetarian, will either of you consider trying some Texas barbecue after the fight? Thank you.
Why after the fight? Actually, right now I'm in Tex-Mex restaurant and trying to have some fajitas. So after our conversation, I will have some beef fajitas. Yesterday we had some steak, so it's not a problem for me. I can do it before the fight as well.
And our next question will be from Shaquille Majori with MMA Mania.
Thank you. First, for Valentina, you spoke last year about how you don't really want to set any goals for yourself in terms of records and such, because that's what breaks a lot of champions. And so I was wondering, when this chapter of your life is closed, how do you want fans to remember you? What do you want your legacy as a fighter to be?
I would correct you a little bit. I never say, like, I don't want to put a goal or something like this. It's not that meaning that I wanted to put in these words. I just meant when a person, like, describing their goals, oh, I want to be the best, like, da. I want to be this, I want to be this. This is like a simple thing. It's like everyone do, but very few of them can reach them. When you keep these goals inside of you, and it's like, it's accumulating all energy inside of you. So before you get and receive your goal, before you get it and did it, so you cannot, like, just express out loud for everyone, oh, this is my goal, whatever, because I can see so many times people, they are speaking too much, but when it's time to make action, they are doing wrong. Why? Because they was thinking about speak first and then do. In my what my mindset is, do first, speak later, and this is, I think, the most important. I don't know how I want that people want to remember me, because it's not about this. It's about what you can bring right now. And right now, I'm trying to bring myself to the sport and to show my love to martial arts, to show my lifestyle, that you can travel, you can train, you can do everything, and in the same time enjoy the life. And even like when you are in hard training camp, you can go and explore some, like, new places, new cities, meet new people. So I just try to show my personality. I don't know how I want that people remember me. I don't know, because I live my life right now.
Wonderful. And then what I find very interesting about this pay-per-view in particular is it's sort of rare to get two very dominant champions defending their title on the same card. Jon Jones has cleared out most of the division. I think there's a significant chunk of fans who sort of expect you to do the same. I was wondering if there's any comparisons you can draw from between you and Jon Jones in your careers.
Never thought about this. I never was comparing me and Jon Jones. I very love his style. I admire him as a professional athlete, and his style of fighting, I think it's one of the best ones. It's very universal and very interesting to watch his fight. But I don't know. I never was thinking about it to compare someone with someone.
Thank you. And one for Katlyn. You mentioned to the score how, people always look out for Shevchenko's head kick, and you pointed out how you actually head kicked Carmouche and knocked her down. And I was wondering, what are some areas where you think you performed better than Valentina against Liz Carmouche and against Jessica Eye?
I mean, it's hard to say, because, me and all those girls, including Valentina, all have different styles. So when you match it up together, you're not going to expect the same thing, like MMA. Everyone says, like, MMA math doesn't make sense. And we all know that. We see it time and again. There's too many variables. Maybe if it was boxing and it was only punches, you could compare each other a little bit more. But with MMA, I mean, there's endless possibilities of styles for each and every person. I mean, which, like, I was like a baby then. I mean, it was only my second UFC fight. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy, and I've definitely gotten a lot more experience since then. Like I said, I just think it's hard to compare. It's, I can't say I did this to this person and she did it, or just like you can't say she did this to this person so and I didn't. Like, just doesn't make sense in MMA. So it's too hard to make those comparisons. Like I said, if it was specific sport, maybe, like if it was just Muay Thai, just boxing, or just wrestling, it's a little bit easier to make those comparisons and see how each person does against similar opponents. But for MMA, it's too hard. You never know. And that's what's so exciting about this sport is everyone has their own style, and the styles that match up together. You know, you could have two fighters fight each other 10 times and get a different result every 10 times. You know, it's just kind of the exciting part about mixed martial arts.
For sure. Thank you both very much, and best of luck on Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll hear next from Kendrick Johnson with Ring TV. Kendrick, your line is open. You may have us on mute.
You hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can.
You're good.
Well, my first question is for Valentina. How big a deal is it not to just get your hand raised, but to win spectacularly the way that you did Jessica, or is it just about winning?
Oh, I cannot hear you. Your voice is very low.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
A little bit better. Yeah. Can you repeat, please?
How big a deal is it to not just get your hand raised, but to not just get your hand raised, but to win spectacularly like you did against Jessica, versus how you beat Liz? So it doesn't matter as long as you win.
You know, the victory by itself, it makes you feel the same way. Of course, it's different. Every time it's different. Of course, it's like how you end the fight. It's a little bit kind of different feelings, of course. But by the end of the day, being the champion, still the champion, and stay the champion, this is what matters.
And give some insight to your mindset. It seems like you're very comfortable in these big stages where a lot of people are folded. It seems like you're at your best. What makes you so good on the big stages that we see the best Valentina every time you come out, even though the pressure gets bigger and bigger each fight?
I just was ready for it since the beginning. You know, I came to UFC. My first fight I had in 2015. Yes, it was 2015, first fight in UFC, and I already was 17-time world champion Muay Thai, kickboxing, and MMA. So I was prepared for this. I'm not the person who just started it and suddenly receive all these like things on the top, and the person doesn't know how to deal with this. No, I was prepared exactly for this, mentally and physically, since my childhood.
Gotcha. And my last question is for Katlyn. Do you think you're going to have to take some more chances to do something that nobody else has done, or are you good with just making a technical fight and see where the chips may fall?
I mean, I think what I have to do is win, and you know, I'm willing to take chances to win, and that's what I like to think myself as a very technical fighter, not I don't go crazy and just then be like, I'm, you hear some guys are like, I'm going to war, and they're just so crazy, but that's not my style, and I'm not going to do that just to try to win. I try to win strategically, and that's pretty much my whole game plan. I don't know if that answers your question. I was a little confused.
Basically, you think you have to do something different that you're used to doing and take more risks than you usually do, since you have kind of a conservative style. I mean, is used to dictating the terms of the fight.
I think that maybe taking risks to get more finishers. I don't know if that's your time, but I mean, I think I take pretty good risks. I mean, I only have 2 losses I've never been finished. I have 2 losses on my record, and they're split decisions. Could kind of go either way. So, I think that, the style that I've been fighting has put me in a position where I'm ranked number 1, and I'm fighting for the world title. So, I just have to stay focused in everything that I've worked on for this camp and everything that I've done before. I just have to be very focused for all 25 minutes if it goes that way for the fight, and try to do what we've been working on, and hopefully come out with my hand raised.
All right. Good luck, ladies. See you on Fight Week.
Thank you.
Again, that is star one for any further questions. And no other questions at this time.
We would like to thank Valentina and Katlyn for joining today's call. Media, please stay on the line while we dial in the main event in 5 minutes.
welcome to UFC's conference. Today's call is being recorded. If you have a question during today's call, please press *1. I'd like to turn things over to Lene Breckenridge. Please go ahead.
Everyone, the main event is here, so please welcome UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones and challenger Dominick Reyes.
And at this time, if you do have a question, that will be *1. We'll hear first from Jeffrey Harris, 411 Mania MMA.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and thanks for bringing this fight to my hometown of Houston. First question for Jon Jones. Ever since you came back a little over a year ago with the Alexander Gustafsson fight, has this felt like a new era or a fresh start for you, or does it feel business as always ever since, you first fought in the UFC back in 2008 when you made your debut?
It's hard to understand your question. You're asking, does it feel like business as always or a new era?
Yeah. Has it felt like a new era, from the Gustafsson fight on?
Honestly, not really. You know what I mean? It's like, fighting is fighting. Like a lot of these guys like to consider themselves the new era or the new generation of fighting, but when you get down to film study, there's only so many punches, kicks, and moves you can do. I'm fighting guys that appear to almost come out of nowhere. Guys that haven't always been on my radar. But as far as the actual tactics, there's nothing new era or next generation about it. Guys are getting a little bit younger. But outside of that, the moves are all the same.
Jon, do you like Dominick Reyes as an opponent and as a fighter, and what you've seen from him?
Yes, I like him as an opponent. I really like the fact that he's undefeated. I think something special comes out of me when I fight guys who are undefeated. Ryan Bader was undefeated. He's now the double champ. That excited me. Daniel Cormier was undefeated and looked at as, close to invincible by many people. That excited me, and I passed those tests. Glover Teixeira was on a 20-fight win streak when I met him. So it definitely brings out more when I'm fighting someone who's never tasted defeat before. I feel like Dominick has an attitude of being superior. And it's going to feel great to give him his first taste of defeat.
And question for Dominick: is this a surreal moment for you? Here you are on the cusp of a UFC title fight with Jon Jones.
I think Jon said it best, man. It's just a fight.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck for your fight at UFC 247. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll hear next from Damon Martin, MMAfighting.com.
Hey, guys. First question for Jon. Jon, we've had this conversation in the past. When you go out and beat guys dominantly, somehow there's still criticism that maybe you didn't finish them or you didn't finish them spectacularly enough. What do you think of the criticism when people say, you should have beaten Anthony Smith easier, you should have not had a split decision against Thiago Santos? Are we too critical, or do you feel like you maybe have set the bar so high for yourself that that's why the criticism comes?
Yeah, I think it's the bar that I've set for myself. But people forget the performances that Anthony Smith had leading into our fight. I mean, he was cracking people over the head with that overhand elbow from the clinch. Thiago Santos has knocked out so many people. I remember the lead up for the Thiago Santos fight and the Anthony Smith fight. People were talking about how much better they looked at light heavyweight than they did at middleweight. But then when they get in there with me, and if I don't, absolutely demolish them, somehow it wasn't a worthy win. But to me, I remember the lead up, kind of similar to this situation. I see so many highlights of Dominick knocking people out. And then after the fight, people will be like, well, he was only 12-0. He's only had 6 fights in the UFC. So it's like people are, the guy gets all the praise before the fight, and then after the fight, it's like, well, he's still young in his career. So I'm just comfortable with how it all works out. I just know the hype train that my opponents are going in there with. And so I'm always happy with the win.
Yeah. Have you been impressed by what you've seen out of Dominic, or should I say, is there anything that has impressed you about Dominic leading into this fight?
Yeah. I think, I think he angles off really well when he's getting ready to shoot his left hand. That's something that takes years of experience to be able to do. And, he does a really good job of angling into his, flipping people's rights or countering people's rights and retaliating in his own, left hook for a straight left. I think that's really nice. I think his footwork's pretty nice. Outside of that, I've been in there against a lot of extraordinary fighters that build really, really awesome techniques. And I guess my favorite thing that Dominic does is, he works a bit. He can cut to his left really well before shooting his left. That's about the main thing I'm impressed with.
Jon, you've said in another interview that you'd be really interested in the fight with Stipe Miocic. So obviously we're not looking past Dominic Reyes in any way, shape, or form. But if you are successful this weekend, is a heavyweight title fight more motivating to you than saying, facing the next guy at light heavyweight? And obviously, it's not any offense to any of the guys who are out there, but is that a more motivating fight for you in terms of what would come next than just the next guy at 205?
No, it's all incredibly motivating. I'm very aware that, even for these guys to do good in there against me is a huge feat for them. And so, my job is just to go in there and try to dominate. You know what I mean? I know Corey Anderson's going to come with all of his heart. I know Johnny Walker's going to come with all of his heart. I'm starting to fight guys who, when they joined the UFC, I was the champion. So, since their very first practices, it's been about beating me, right? So when you take that away from them, it means a lot. And so I get up for every fight, no matter. I think the only fight I really didn't get up for was the Alexander Gustafsson fight. I was young, and I was just too confident, too sure of myself, and I almost lost that fight. Since then, I get up for every fight. I said in my Area One interview, if you don't have great pride in every piece of the puzzle, you just can't have a masterpiece at the end. And that's how I genuinely feel. I know I have to take Dominic very seriously. I'm going to have to take Corey Anderson very seriously, and Johnny Walker very seriously, in order to go down one day as the greatest of all time. Every game counts.
Last question for you, Jon. There are so many what ifs. When you mention heavyweight, and everyone keeps talking to you about heavyweight because we've talked about it for so long and because you have conquered so many challenges at 205 pounds. But is there a good chance that is next? And I know not necessarily you're trying to take that fight away from Daniel Cormier, but obviously Stipe had said, I'd like to, his manager has said, maybe he'd like some new challenges, some different challenges. I don't know what that, read into that what you will, but is there a chance that could be your next fight later this year?
It's definitely a possibility. One thing I know for sure is I think going up to heavyweight would inspire me on a different level, just because there would be so many elements that I'm familiar with. Gaining weight, staying lean and strong, mainly the weight gaining and understanding how I'm going to perform and how I'm going to move at the higher weight class. I've been going against heavyweights my whole life. My brother is one of the best heavyweights in New York State wrestling history. And I would wrestle him every day in high school. I've been getting my ass kicked by my older brother my whole life. And, I used to train with Travis Brown, Andre Arlovsky, so many great heavyweights for years. So I'm very comfortable, going against guys that are bigger and stronger than me. I guess all the questions I would have to answer is, how am I going to do? Like I said, with the weight gain and all that type of stuff. There's just a lot of factors that I'm not familiar with that would probably motivate me to just push it hard and give it my best energy.
Thank you, Jon. And one question for Dominic. Dominic leading into this fight, I know you saw the Twitter stuff earlier with Jon talking about the comments you made on Countdown about he's fought strikers, he's fought wrestlers, he's not fought an athlete. Can you explain to us, kind of in depth what that means and why you feel you are a different caliber of athlete than some of the other guys he's fought in the past when you look at, or an Alexander Gustafsson or some of the other guys he's fought in his career? What separates you in terms of being an athlete?
I was speaking on being a traditional athlete, playing baseball, playing football, basketball, track and field. Those sports, they're different than just being a martial artist, like just wrestling or karate or whatever you're doing. Like, it requires a different amount of just athleticism and overall focus. It's different. It's just different, man. Yeah, man. There's really nothing to be said on that. It's just, if you don't really understand it, then you don't understand it. That's all there is to it.
I definitely don't understand it. Yeah, I definitely don't understand it. DC's been wrestling since he was a little boy. Rio's been fighting since he was a little boy. I've been wrestling since I was a little boy. And Dominic doesn't know what the 20-something odd guys that I beat, what they grew up doing. So to assume because you play sport or you play sports growing up that somehow no one else has
it's not just playing sports. It's getting to a very high level of athletics. It's learning the intricacies of movement. It's really studying film before you actually study film. Guys don't usually study film until they get in UFC and they don't really understand what it is. There's so many intricacies of being a high-level athlete that most people do not understand. That's what I'm saying.
Gentlemen, we'll hear next from Nolan King, MMA Junkie.
Hey, guys. Appreciate the time today. My first question is for Jon. Jon, I'm not sure if you had the opportunity to see this, but shortly before we hopped on this call, Jeff Nowitzki sent out a tweet saying that you were subject to 22 no-notice drug tests in 2019. He said this was the most he's seen in his 20 years of experience. First off, what is it like to be, tested that many times? And, what do you think that says about you?
Well, at one point, in 2019, I did, almost 30 drug tests with USADA alone. And then I also had 2 other drug testing agencies that were drug testing me. So only with USADA alone, I was one of the most heavily drug tested athletes in all sports. Then when you include the numbers from the other agencies, Nevada State Athletic Commission and California Athletic Commission, I know for a fact that no one's been drug tested as much as me. And what that shows is that not only am I willing to, prove that this whole situation that I was in was it was never intentional. And I think it proves that I have absolutely nothing to hide. And it also proves my willingness to try to make things easier for fighters in the future. At the end of the day, because of me, fighters now, there's an allowance on how much you have in your body. That was something that I was able to help fight for through all my hours in the courtroom. And because of me, USADA doesn't go out and disclose people's tests unless they know exactly what's going on, which saves people's reputations. This whole situation damaged my reputation tremendously, and I feel like the only way I can make it right is by just being incredibly transparent with the fans, with the drug testers, and I tell you what, people with things to hide, they don't submit themselves to that level of drug testing. So I just feel like it'll help with my vindication over time.
You talk about the damage of your reputation. Do you think statements like the one that Jeff just made and like what you just said, do you feel like that is enough to silence these critics, or do you feel like no matter what you do, they'll always be there?
I think there's a difference between critics and just trolls. Some people, a lot of the guys that say the dumb stuff online, they're usually the guys who have no profile picture, and they're just saying something to get a reaction. True critics, the guys who are actually reading the articles and reading exactly what happened and what went down. Those are really the only people that I care to kind of see what's really going on. You know, like you guys, you reporters, the people that like really matter, you know. And that's all I need. I think at the end of the day, the trolls will always be chirping, "Oh, you did steroids," or "He's a crackhead," and all that type of stuff. They're always going to say what they got to say. But like I said, the people who actually sat down and read the articles and did their homework, they know exactly what went down, and I think that's all that's going to matter in the grand scheme of things. These are going to be the people who are writing the books and writing the stories of, you know, my story. So as long as they see the truth, that's all that matters.
Pertaining to the matchup with Dominic, you know, initially on Twitter and through interviews, you didn't seem overly interested in this matchup. You said at one point you said that you didn't feel like there was really much to gain with the matchup against him. But listening to you here, you sound pretty excited about it. Obviously, you took the fight, so I guess you know, has that changed, and if so, why?
Yeah, I initially I thought that it was a situation where I didn't have much to gain from it, but more that I thought about it. Give me a second here. The more that I think about it, it's a huge fight for me. It's a great fight for me. It's not a huge fight actually, but it's a great fight for me. Just because he's undefeated, and he's the toughest guy out there right now. You know, we have the choice of whether we're going to fight Corey Anderson or Dominic Reyes. You know, that was a conversation I had with the UFC, and I chose Dominic Reyes because, you know, me and my coaches watched Corey fight and we watched Dominic, and we saw that Dominic was finishing people. You know, I like a guy like Corey Anderson who can grind out a 25-minute fight, you know, match me in cardio. But Corey Anderson doesn't really finish people like that. You know, Dominic can finish people, which is way more of a challenge. It's way more scary of a fight, and that's exactly why we did it. So I love this fight. I think I got a great challenger, and I'm taking him serious, and I think I'm going to do what I've always done: figure out a way to get it done.
And for Dominic, 32 months ago yesterday, you were on getting a highlight reel knockout in LFA. You were on SportsCenter. You weren't even in the UFC yet, though. You know, can you even put into words to describe what of a whirlwind this last, you know, 2+ years has been for you?
Just, I wouldn't say it was like a whirlwind. I mean, I'm living every day, you know, accordingly. Like, whatever happens on a daily basis, I react to it how it goes. I mean, I don't really look back very often on when it all started and things like that, but yeah, it did happen fast, and I think that's a testament to my hard work and attention to detail.
The last thing for me, you know, there's a lot of questions about Jon's future. You hear him on the call, you see them online. You know, will he fight Stipe? Will he fight? Who will he fight next? You know, this idea of being overlooked, does that bother you at all, or do you think it just adds to the underdog story?
I mean, it's to be expected. You know, I'm fighting Jon Jones. He is who he is for a reason. He's undefeated, you know, minus, you know, the technical loss or whatever. But he's a great champion, man. If I was not the underdog, that would be pretty crazy. Like that would be odd. So, I mean, it's expected. It is what it is. Everything is going pretty much exactly how it should be at this time. So, yeah.
Appreciate the time, guys. Thanks.
We'll hear next from Andrew Whitelaw with Fox Sports Asia. Andrew, your line is open if you still have a question for us.
Hi, guys. Jon, you fought twice in 2019. You're fighting nice and early in 2020. So what's most important for you, and what are your priorities for this year? What do you want to get done?
My goal is to fight 3 times this year. My goal is to win this fight on Saturday. Fight maybe overseas in the middle of the year. and then end the year in Las Vegas. One of those big cards at the very end of the year. That's my goal, is to fight 3 times this year.
Fighting overseas, is there anywhere that particularly interests you?
I wouldn't mind fighting in Australia. I think that'd be pretty cool. But
and that would potentially be the Adesanya fight?
No, not necessarily. You know, I've been over to Australia, and the fans are so receiving, so loving, and I realized that I had a very strong fan base over there. And I think it'd just be great to enhance my brand by fighting in front of a different audience for once. So it's just an idea, but I'd love to do it.
For the longest time, the assumption was the best gyms and the best camps were in the US. But with champions like Valentina training out of Thailand, increasing number of fighters going out there, and the Coach of the Year coming out of New Zealand, is there still that idea that the US has the best gyms? Do they need to step their game up a bit? How do you feel about that?
I think mixed martial arts in the United States is doing just fine. I think we're doing just fine. I think the majority of the champions are American, and a majority of the top 5 are all Americans in every weight class, I would imagine. And I think we're doing just fine. I am proud of the other countries for starting to make their presence be known. But I think mixed martial arts for a very long time is going to be the hotbed of MMA. At the same time, I hope people from other countries are inspired to train their athletes to believe in themselves the highest they can, and to show that, you know, guys like McGregor and Valentina, you know, they can do it, you can do it too, you know. So be inspired, man. Where you're from don't even matter. It's about the heart that you have, the team that you surround yourself with, and that's what it is. At the end of the day, you know, Jackson's mixed martial arts. We've held down the light heavyweight division for over a decade, so you know, I'll always, you know, stand up for Albuquerque, New Mexico, and what we're able to produce out here. A high altitude training is something else.
Thank you.
We'll hear next from Brad Lewis with News Hub.
G'day, guys. Thanks for the opportunity. Jon, first question for you. Do you think that, you know, given the fact that this is what your 15th, 16th main event UFC fight, Dominic's sort of first in terms of a main pay-per-view, and this has been the case for you for the last sort of 4 or 5 fights, that this gives you an advice in terms of understanding how the week flows with the media requirements and the open workout and all that sort of stuff? Do you think this gives you sort of like a mental edge over your opponents?
I think 1,000%. I think 1,000% it's an edge over my opponent. You know, my opponent can say that he's comfortable and you know, he's not nervous and try to, you know, make people believe whatever, but I know deep down inside he has to be. Absolutely has to be. Not only is he fighting the main event, he's getting more attention than he ever has before, and more media obligation than he ever had before. Everybody is, you know, rooting for him back at home. It causes tons of pressure. But I started doing this when I was a kid. I've been doing this since I was 20 years old. So for me, it truly is another day at the office. You know, I don't believe any fight is a big fight. It's just another fight. But my opponent is a very big fight. They probably hire more people than they've ever hired. They seek more help from people that they probably never asked for help for before. They're getting motivated and pushed by so many people that are eating healthier than they've ever ate before. I mean, every guy I've ever been against is in a title fight and believes that he had the best training camp of his life. That's what I'm used to. So yeah, this is 100% what I do. I have been doing it for a long time, and I respect Dominic very much and his team very much. But yeah, none of this is new to me. The nerves, all this stuff is exactly what I live for. I believe that I was born to do it. I believe my little brother was born to be a great football player. Older brother was born to be a great football player. I believe that I was born to be one of God's soldiers in the martial arts cage.
And Dominic, question for you, just on that, like, have you found the lead up to this fight any different? And I know it's early in fight week, so you've probably still got a lot of requirements to get through, but, you know, have you sort of prepared for that in any way, and how can you prepare for that sort of different profile throughout fight week?
Just take every day as it comes, man. I mean, you could worry about it and all those things, but one thing at a time, man. One step at a time. I used to say when I was in college, when the road ahead seems daunting, take a breath and focus on the next step. Like, one thing at a time. And right now, you're on this call.
And Jon, final question for you. Thank you guys for your time. Israel Adesanya is going to be cage-side this weekend. I know that you guys don't have a lot of respect for each other. I'm sure you respect each other's fighting abilities, but is that a fight that, you know, whenever it happens, if it does happen, is that a fight that excites you in terms of the hype behind Israel and his history as a kickboxer? And I know that you like to beat guys where they're at their best. Is that a fight that excites you potentially down the road, regardless of what happens this weekend?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you know, this isn't K1. You know, this isn't whatever league he used to fight in. You know, I've watched him catch an overhand right, and literally I've watched him with his legs stiff. You know what I mean? His swagger is exciting to the fans, but I know 1,000 people like him. I grew up with people like him. He doesn't impress me the way he impressed everyone else. He's scared, man. That's all it is. When he says you got to respect the game or the game will humble you, you know, he's talking about not fighting me now or me beating his ass. So he's scared, man. And when you let a fighter like me know that you're not prepared to fight today and you wish you had another year to prepare and all that shit, it lets you know your mental state. And that's all I need to know. So if he feels like he's not quite up for the challenge now, and he honestly thinks that I'm going to be somehow a weaker version of myself next year, he's sadly mistaken. I'm just now figuring out training camps and figuring out different ways of healing and recovery and all these things. My teammates are getting stronger. My coaches, I'm only a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. You know, if he thinks I'm getting slower and weaker, he's sadly mistaken. So he's scared today. He's made that very clear to the public. And nothing's going to change next year.
All right, guys, thanks so much for your time, and enjoy fight week, and have a good fight on the weekend.
Have a good one.
We'll hear now from Stephen Morocco with MMAfighting.com.
Hey, Dominic, just wanted to make a quick check on the whole situation with the Kobe Bryant jersey. Any word on whether you'll be able to wear that?
Nothing as of now. So we'll see.
Have they told you they're open to it? Any sort of feedback from them?
Nope. Not really a huge focus of mine. I mean, I put it out there. If they come back with positive news, then cool. But not, then not.
Gotcha. And then, Jon, have you made any specific requests on who's going to referee the fight?
No, I have not. But I've had some shitty situations happen in there. You know, I felt like I've had guys that were very obviously not on my side in that ring. And I'm not going to say their names because I don't want to give them attention. But even with that happening, I still found a way to not only win those two fights, but finish those fights. You know, it's pretty public that John McCarthy, I felt like his energy was way off when I fought Vito Belfort, and I found a way to finish the fight. I also thought the energy coming from, I will say his name, I felt like the energy coming in that second Alexander Gustafsson fight, I felt like that referee was sending me some funny-ass energy backstage and in the cage. And I finished the Gustafsson fight, too. So, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like it was in God's plans for me to do what I've been doing. It won't matter which coaches I have, which coaches Dominic has, who's the referee. None of that stuff matters, man. God's will is God's will. And so it won't matter who's the referee.
Have you heard any of his comments about eye pokes and sort of the people needing to make a change to sort of regulators needing to make a change to change a culture of cheating. Have you heard any of those comments? And if so, what do you think about them?
Yeah, I mean, in my last Gustafsson fight, you know, that referee kept on saying, "Watch your fingers, John. Watch your fingers, John." Like, literally, my fingers weren't even out half the time, and he kept yelling that to me, which was a major distraction. You know, and I know Dominic has a problem with the finger stuff too, and I know he's talking to the referee before the fight. None of that stuff's going to matter, dude. None of that stuff's going to matter. I feel like the game made a rule that was single-handedly based around me, and I won't let that type of stuff matter.
Have you changed your style at all?
I fight how I fight. You know, I grab for hands a lot, and over the years, I've coincidentally landed a few eye pokes. But if you guys think that I trained poking people in the eyes, I mean, think about how ridiculous that is. We fight with our fingers open, and I can be a very reachy fighter sometimes, and it happens. But no, I haven't changed anything about my training style. I train very hard, and like I said, I don't train to poke people in the eyes. So, but it's good when people are banking on that type of stuff, though. That's good for me. You know, people are thinking on getting poked and getting a free point. All that type of stuff is good for me. I don't think about that type of stuff.
Gotcha. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Breckenridge, I'll turn the conference back to you.
Great. We would like to thank John and Dominic and all the media for joining today's call. UFC 247 schedule events has been released, and we'll see everyone this week in Houston.